Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Thrive for Life Live. Tonight, we are talking to the co-authors of the Made for More physician entrepreneurs who live life and practice medicine on their own terms. Yes, thank you, Dr. Beckford and Dr. Lawrence, having your copies available. And for those, and thank you, Dr. Aniyaku. Yes. See, I am not prepared. My copy is on the table. But I just want to say, for those who aren't aware, this book is available on Amazon. Go and get your copy. You will feel inspired. You will feel so empowered to continue on your business, entrepreneur business, whether you're completely employed, you can be an entrepreneur, you can do anything that you want. The sky is the limit. So you just have to keep going. So I'm so glad that I have these three phenomenal physicians who are co-authors, but then also they are speakers. So let's introduce our panelists. So today we have Dr. Tamara Beckford. She is an emergency medicine physician, an international speaker, and CEO of Your Caring Docs, where she helps companies reduce employee burnout through self-care workshops. She also hosts the Tamara Beckford Show, where she interviews physicians about self-care, wellness, and their activities inside and outside clinical medicine. So welcome, Dr. Beckford.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
And we're so excited you're here today, too, because you're going to bring the knowledge. And then next we have Dr. Wandu Aniyaku, who is a physician executive speaker, coach, and consultant based in Seattle, Washington. She is a board-certified pediatrician and serves as the Chief Health Equity Officer for Providence Swedish Health Services, and she works closely with clinical and community leaders. Welcome, Dr. Aniyaku. So good to have you.
For having me. It's so exciting.
So excited to have you too. And then Dr. Jeannie Lawrence. She is a board-certified adult psychiatrist and psychotherapist and national speaker. She's the owner of a private psychiatric practice that specializes in women's mental health. And she also owns a life coaching business that helps women physicians thrive even in the midst of their busy and challenging lives. So happy to have you here again, Dr. Lawrence. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here. And Dr. Beckford, let's start with you. Now, in your chapter, called Igniting the Fire, you talk about overcoming fear to start your business. And now you are a speaker. And you're all these different employees, businesses, and speaking about employee health. What led you down this journey, and how did you overcome that fear?
Great question. As you mentioned, when I thought about writing what was going on, I really thought about fire, because there's always a fire that we have within us. And a lot of times we have to be able to kind of ignite that to get on the journey. And this journey of entrepreneurship started with just kind of like a flicker in me saying that I wanted to do more. I mean, it's not that I was not doing well at the time. I was doing well. And, this is before the pandemic kind of crept on. As you mentioned, I am an emergency medicine physician. So in the midst of wanting more, then we had this pandemic that came on. And the pandemic changed the dynamic of a lot of our jobs. So at that point, I had to decide, am I going to just stay and watch for what will happen to me, or am I going to be more of a catalyst? Am I going to light this fire and learn an additional skill and do something that will provide me with the ability to be a little bit more in control of what I want in my life? And as I mentioned, emergency medicine, it's great, but it's not something that I can practice at the exact level that I went in around 20, 30 years later. So I have to be realistic, So I started igniting that fire. And as you mentioned, there was a lot of fear, because going into something that's unknown is hard. Putting yourself out there is hard. Waiting to be criticized is hard. Wondering if those who were around you, who supported you initially for things that you were doing before, and then seeing that you're changing what you're doing now is hard, because you really are in a vulnerable state. So when I went into writing this chapter, I had to really think about all of those fears that I had and said that, you know what, I'm going to ignite even though I have this fear, I'm going to ignite this fire that I have within me and go out and just push.
I love that. Go out and push, overcome all the different fears, all the different mindsets that kind of hold you back.
Absolutely.
Well, that was interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk about you, Dr. Lawrence. In your chapter, you discussed the fact that it took you 6 long years to decide to start your business. But then when you decided, it took you 10 days to start it. Will you please describe a little bit more how you were able to make that mind shift and how that led you down the journey of being a physician entrepreneur and speaker?
It's true. I had started, thinking about entrepreneurship probably within the first year or so out of residency. And at that time, I liked clinical medicine a lot, but I was even then starting to see and feel some of the changes in medicine, not having the kind of autonomy that I wanted. Having people who were not doctors, informing patient care, sometimes more than I felt like I was informing patient care. And so, that really started the thought process that, maybe I could find greater fulfillment in medicine if I were to go down this path of entrepreneurship. That being said, my natural bend before I moved into entrepreneurship was just to think about it, to research it, to read books. I would talk to people about it, but narrowing down my ideas and actually knowing exactly what steps to start to take was something that I didn't have, inherently. And so, yes, I spent many years, continuing to work my clinical jobs while thinking about starting a business in the background. And what changed, everything changed in 2020 with the start of the COVID pandemic. That really, for me, what was happening for me, I wanted to start writing a blog about mental health. I'd even written some articles, but hadn't hit publish on them. And when the pandemic hit and everybody was isolated, everybody was, online kind of sharing their struggles, that really prompted me to say, you know what, this is a place where I can share my voice, share my expertise. Everybody was struggling emotionally with, anxiety and stress and all the things that went along with the pandemic. And so that's when I started blogging and putting myself out there as a way just to kind of, serve my community and folks that would read my blog. And 2020 was also the year that I decided that, 6 years is enough. I'm going to get some business coaching, joined EntreMD, and then, the rest is history. After I had a plan of action and the coaching and community that I needed, it kind of all moved very quickly from there.
Well, that's wonderful. Sometimes it takes us a little bit of time to think about it, but then once we decide, you're decisive, and look at you now. Look at you now. Well, Dr. Anyaoku, what led you down that journey of speaking and being a physician entrepreneur?
So my journey sort of has 2 phases. And the first part of it was the phase of being an intrapreneur mostly, right? So for me, I tell people that entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's a way of thinking, a way of being, and owning yourself, your skills, your expertise, right? And all that you have to offer. And so I started down this road years ago, just kind of thinking about how do I represent myself, my brand, independent of what larger organization I work with, that I know what my brand is worth to me and to the organization. It makes a difference in the way you have conversation and the way you show up. And so in the chapter that I wrote talking about unstoppable confidence, I talked a little bit about how I embarked on that journey to understand my, to be confident in my own power, in my own skills, and in my own, abilities. And it's interesting because I started to do this process. I was always speaking as part of my job. I was always coaching people. I did it all as part of my job. And it sort of took a while before I decided, you can actually do this as a business, right? You can actually create a whole other line, from doing the work that you love to do already and that you've demonstrated skill and capacity for. So I tell people all the time, what I do now is I coach physicians who are, physicians and executive leaders who are navigating healthcare organizations. For a lot of us, it's a challenging space because we feel like we bought a ticket on one train and ended up on a different one, and it doesn't feel like what we signed up for. But there is a way to navigate that space and to be successful. And I've helped a lot of doctors over the years and executive leaders. And so what transitioned over the last few years is actually thinking, no, I can offer this as a gift, as a business, and actually make an entrepreneurial structure out of it, as well as being entrepreneurial, which is what I've been for the past few years. So it's been an interesting journey.
Well, thank you so much. It definitely is interesting. And I love the fact where you're like, listen, I'm not doing this for free anymore. I need to be getting paid. So that is really good. I want to just introduce Dr. Ndimaka Obadan. She is the founder of Younger Self MD, which is a medical clinic in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. And she helps adults at risk prevent and treat chronic medical conditions like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and kidney disease. Welcome to the show, Dr. Obadan. We're so good to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you all.
Good to see you. Now, in your chapter, you wrote, "Fear is universal because all highly successful individuals must work through their fears by taking action." What fears did you overcome to become a speaker and a physician entrepreneur? And what strategies did you use to work through that fear?
What fears did I tell me? Could you repeat that? What fears did I encounter?
Oh yeah,
Oh
what
my
fears did you
goodness.
have to overcome? Mm-hmm.
I had to overcome a lot of fear of the unknown, fear of being successful, fear of failing. As physicians, we're used to putting in everything we have the first time to get it right. We are in a career where there is no room for failure because we're dealing with lives. So you cannot afford to make mistakes. Errors are not acceptable because of the consequences. So we are trained to be excellent in what we do. And my strategy to overcome fear, all the different fears that first I realized that this is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. Mm-hmm. I learned this from a mentor that I've been following for almost 4 years now. And I normalized this fear. I realized that this is something we all commonly share. We all share this. And anyone who is successful, as a matter of fact, I'm reading a book right now by one of my other mentors, virtual mentors, and they are talking about all the things that they've been through. Oh, yes, exactly. False evidence appearing real. They talk about, in this book I'm reading, he talks about how to overcome, he has had to take persistent, consistent, daily actions in spite of inconveniences, in spite of discomfort to achieve the goals that are necessary. And these are really ultra successful people we're talking about here. So, I look at myself and I'm like, it's okay. It's normal. We all go through this and we are going past our comfort zone. So I embrace it and try to surround myself with powerful women like you to encourage me to keep moving forward.
I love that. We have to embrace our fear, embrace it, but keep being persistent. I love that. Dr. Beckford, in your book, you talk about changing your mindset from I can't to how can I? What strategies did you use in order to help you do that?
Wow, that's such a great and loaded question, because that's something that, even though we've written this book, we wrote our chapters around probably like a year or more ago, it's still something that we struggle with and have to continue using that same strategy now. So moving from how can I, from I can't to how can I, it really requires you taking a step back. A lot of times we're really deep into the emotions because as Dr. Ndidi mentioned, you've really been trained, especially if you're reading this book from a position of you've been through professional school, such as medical school or any of the professional school, dentistry, any of the direct professional school that it requires such a slim margin of error because of the large consequences, engineering or anything. We get into a mindset of I am paralyzed by whatever fear it is. And therefore, I don't move on from whatever happens to think like, how can I improve upon myself without just beating ourselves down, right? Getting into an onset of just probably even spiraling down into unproductive thoughts. So that's something that I have to really sit and I have to sit with it. And it goes along with something that even we were talking about off camera earlier today, where we have to sit with our thoughts, sit and recognize what went wrong, recognize why you're doing this in the first place. And that's what I had to really like, so how can I overcome this? Do I want to continue? Why do I want to continue? Because this is the goal that I have for myself in the first place. I want to serve. And of course, I do want to earn. But in the service process, it requires me to think of how can I incorporate the failures that have occurred and how can I learn from them and move on. But it really requires you to sit with it and ask yourself those hard questions. They're very hard, but you have to sit with it and then you take that step forward. So it's kind of like that speed bump in the road. When you're there, you recognize it. You might get stuck on it. You go back, you pick up the momentum, and then you go over that speed bump. So that's really that how can I process.
I love that. So for those who may have missed it, she said, number one, take a step back. Then recognize, why am I doing this in the first place? And then number three, take a step forward. So keep moving forward. So Dr. Anielku, what are some obstacles that you faced while starting your journey, and any obstacles that you faced even throughout your journey, and how did you overcome them?
I think a lot of them have been mentioned, which is really thinking about how, right? So we've gone through this training that tells us what, and we must do that. But understanding that the entrepreneurship part of your journey is separate from your medical part, right? So you have to keep those two tracks of learning separate, because in entrepreneurship, failure is part of the process, right? So it's part of how you learn. And so you have to be open to stepping into it, as Dr. Beckford says, looking at it and saying, okay, that didn't work out. Why not? Take a step back. This doesn't say I'm bad. It doesn't say I'm a failure. It says that I might need to pivot. It says that I might need to do something different or reach in a different way. And I think, if you get caught in the mire, then you don't see the big picture. And so when I said earlier that entrepreneurship is a mindset, when you learn to think like that, then you can apply it to every area of your life, right? And then it's not the thing, it's how do you do the thing? How do I move forward? How do I make the next step? How do I put my name out there and say that people actually are interested in what I have to say? Because we wield our expertise so easily that we forget it took us a lot to gain it. And so we think that it's common, but it's not common, right? It's your zone of genius. And so really owning that zone of genius and knowing that it is actually a gift that you have a responsibility to share with the world, then, when you separate that out from the actual process of how you do it, it makes it easier for you to keep moving forward, because you're like, okay, to Dr. Beckford's point as well, why am I doing this? Because I have this gift, because somebody needs my help, because somebody needs to hear what I have to say so that they can get to tomorrow, to a future that is different from where they are. And so every time you come up against a challenge, you go back to that and say, okay, I have to keep going forward because somebody needs me.
I love that. You feel that inspiration. Yes. And you're right. Sometimes we tell people we're in our zone of genius, and it just seems so easy for us. Whereas other people are like, I just need help to figure this out. So you're absolutely right. Dr. Obadon, what are some obstacles that you faced while starting your journey, and maybe even facing now or throughout your journey, and how did you overcome them?
Obstacles are a dime a dozen. They keep coming and you keep, moving. Okay. So the biggest obstacle, let me see, because there've been so many. I don't even know which one is the biggest. From, I had to, okay. So being in a new location, we had to relocate multiple times, and understanding the environment, getting to know people, getting to network, leaving my previous network behind and starting all the way from scratch, which is against one of the advice that some other that one of my mentors gives. But so the biggest obstacle I will say is kind of growing the business, keeping it, growing it. Right now, I'm facing and I know the answer to this question. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, which is what I'm doing. It's marketing. You got to put yourself out there, and hence, me being here, hence the book. I'm chapter 23 in the book, for everyone who's watching. So, putting ourselves out there and moving from obscurity and marketing ourselves, which is against our training, by the way. I'll have to add that, our training is totally the opposite of what we're doing right now. We have been trained for years, and I've been in practice for 15 years, and I've had multiple years of training. So when you combine all of that, that's definitely more than I don't tell you my age, but it's definitely more than 25 years of I'm trying to now unlearn everything I've learned over this many years of putting myself out there and letting people know the skills that I have and the things I enjoy talking about. So yes. So those are the obstacles.
Yeah,
I don't know which one is the biggest. I can't quantify it. I don't know which. I think they're all big, and there's so many.
It's big at that time, and then we overcome it. It's a little bit smaller.
Exactly, but more are coming, and we're supposed to embrace this and actually look for bigger challenges, and embrace this mindset. The title of my chapter 23 is creating the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. So embracing the mindset and moving forward despite all these obstacles that we're talking about.
Yes, I love it. Creating that mindset. Well, Dr. Lawrence, what were some obstacles that you faced in your journey, and how did you overcome it?
Many. And I definitely resonate with all that have been said. One that I was thinking about was having to take steps forward without necessarily knowing the end, not seeing the end. I feel like with medical training and being a doctor, it's very different from that, where once you decide that you're going to be a doctor, you get into med school. And as long as you go to class, pass your classes, do what has been prescribed to you, that in the end, you're going to graduate with your MD. And the same for residency, right? You do what you have to do. It's all laid out and prescribed for you, and you show up, you do the work, and you're going to, leave that program with your training degree. And so entrepreneurship is really different, right? It's like you take a step and you're just not really sure how the end is going to be. You never know. You don't necessarily know where you're going. And the big difference is that you're never going to get clear unless you take those kind of uncertain steps. So I think not necessarily having a path laid out for you, being able to forge your own path has a lot of fear that can come with that, and uncertainty. And I think that that has been, an obstacle. And in terms of how I've overcome that, being in community and working with people and being around people who are also taking those steps and not knowing exactly where we're going, but having that that group around me that's kind of doing the same thing has made it okay and kind of normalize that experience. And then when you see things starting to become clearer, the more you move forward, it kind of sinks in that, yeah, you're going to have to, you won't see the entire road ahead of you, but if you keep moving forward, things will clear up and become more clear for you and come together. So having community and people doing it with me.
No, those are huge wins. Like having that accountability and those people that are there to kind of help you and show you that it's possible. That's the one thing I love about our community at EntreMD, or I like to call it my tribe, because I see what you do and I get inspired. And I'm like, hey, Jeannie did it. I can do it. So I appreciate you all. Dr. Anioku, you talk in your chapter about that humble brag. Can you explain what is a humble brag and how do we do that? Because I've been told that you shouldn't be, bragging. So how do I do that?
I think, many of us have mentioned that here today, just how hard it is for us to talk about ourselves, to talk about what we do. And the humble brag really is saying, work doesn't speak, right? Most of us think that if you work hard enough, people will see how wonderful your work is and they'll come. No, all that work does is create more work. You have to speak about what you've done, what you've accomplished, the impact you've had. And you don't, it's not a beating your chest kind of speaking. That's the opposite of a humble brag. But a humble brag says, you know what, I did this. I helped this person. I made this impact, right? Because by your saying it, even if you only say it to yourself, it helps you to own it. You know what, I actually did that. So when the next time you get that thought that tells you can't, you have something to counter it in your head that says, actually you did. And so, remember that person who did that. So saying it to yourself is your first audience. Then saying it to other people is so that people who are working with you also know that they've made impact. But the people to whom you want to make the impact also know that you are the one to come to help them. Because if you don't say it, then nobody knows that there is a resource that can help them. So I have been in healthcare organizations for over 30 years. So like Ndidi, we're not counting how old I am. We're just going with the years. But in that time, I've had the opportunity to help support a lot of people who have struggled to navigate that space, right? Because some people can get out and start a practice. Some people want to stay employed, and we should have all those options. But what you have to know is what is the power that is in your hand, so that you're not staying in there in a crouch. I have no autonomy. I can't pour me. I have to go to, no. We have worked too hard to earn our qualifications for us to be in a crouch. So have that humble brag and say, yes, I can help you because I've helped other people, so that somebody else who needs your help knows to come to you, right? And in so doing, you're building your constituency, your internal constituency with yourself, your internal constituency with your organization, and your external constituency with the world at large. I love what Dr. Lawrence said, which is about not having a clue what the end is from the beginning. So when I talk about entrepreneurship being a mindset, it is truly a space in which you interact with the universe. You just keep walking, keep stepping forward, and the thing will keep refining itself and telling you, no, I think you should do this. And when you start walking, you just know that you should walk, but you don't know where you're going to land. And as you start to speak, what the gift that you're required to give will get sharper, it will get clearer. People will ask you for more of that thing and not the other thing. People will ask for you to stand here and not so much over there. And you're like, oh, okay, this is the space where I'm needed. This is the space where I'm called to serve. And it becomes clearer and clearer over time. So you have to just keep, what does Dory say? Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, keep walking forward, right?
I love that. I love that. Keep moving forward. Keep walking forward. Well, Dr. Beckford, what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned in this journey of physician entrepreneurship?
Wow. One of the biggest lessons, I think it goes along with even what Dr. Jeannie Lawrence mentioned, is that there are a lot of uncertainty in this process. And it really taps into a lot of the fears. It's a lot of unlearning. It's a lot of unlearning that, because we've all been trained to think a certain way. So, we've been using the word mindset a lot. And, so its mindset is really how you're thinking, how you think about the process. We've been trained to think about a process in a certain way. Entrepreneurship is different. It allows you to experiment, and it's okay. We as doctors, we've never been really allowed to experiment, which is understandable because of the training. And as we mentioned, what's at stake, the lives that are at stake. But entrepreneurship allows you to experiment. And it's okay if you did it one way and then the next time you go back and said, okay, I'm going to do it another way. So learning to pick yourself back up and learning that the world is your oyster to explore and to just continue exploring, that has been one of the most wonderful part of entrepreneurship. And I think it's also the hardest part for us as physicians, because we want everything perfect before we make that first move. So we do all the research, we do all the reading, we do watch all the webinars, we buy all the courses, we watch some more webinars, we watch others, and it's hard for us to start. So knowing that you can start and experiment, and it's a journey that allows that part of you that's been suppressed because of our medical training to really come back out, that I think is one of these portions that has been exciting and challenging at the same time.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to open that question up to everybody. What are one of the biggest lessons that you have learned in your journey thus far? I'm going to open up to the group. Anyone want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have fear, and just, embrace the fear and, enjoy the thing that you are creating, whatever it is that you want to create. Sell the vision and surround yourself with great supportive communities. Embrace it and keep moving forward.
Love it, love it. Embrace the fear.
It will all come together in the end. Just believe. Have the faith.
And anyone else, Dr. Wandu and Dr. Lawrence?
Yeah. For me, I would say don't try to do it alone. That's probably been my biggest lesson. Like I alluded to before, those 6 years was because I was trying to figure it out on my own. And once you get around like-minded people, it can really accelerate your success. I think doctors tend to be independent people. We got through med school and residency without a coach necessarily. And we kind of think that we can figure things out on our own, or that we should be able to figure it out on our own. I hear that all the time from people I work with, and it's definitely a mindset that I had. But, what I've learned is that, if you want to go far and fast, it's so much better when you connect with other people. That's just been a huge part of my journey. Getting coaching, one-on-one is one thing, but I think just meeting all of you amazing doctors here on this panel and everybody in our tribe has propelled me so much further and given me opportunities, being on this panel, Dr. Tamara, and getting this practice and getting these reps in. And again, you can try to do it on your own, but it's so much more rewarding and it'll go so much faster if you kind of lean in, ask for help, and join with people who are in the same boat as you.
Yes, I love that. Ask for help. Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Dr. Anioku, what is your biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
Honestly, my lesson is the same as the two just said. And I describe it as everybody needs a dream team. Mm-hmm. And I think of the dream team as being a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, and community. And I think a mentor is someone who's gone where you want to go, who can share their journey. A sponsor is someone who says your name in rooms where you're not, and gives you opportunity because you weren't in those rooms and they know about you. A coach shortens the distance between where you are and where you're trying to go. And your community, carefully curated community, as everybody has already mentioned, of people who are believers, who are dreamers like you, who don't shut down, who are not extinguishers. There are people that you say something and they're like, oh, really? Okay, you need to run fast and far from those people. You want those people that when you describe your big, hairy, audacious goal, they go, absolutely, we're right there with you. What do you need? Let's go. You totally got this. That's the energy you need to surround yourself with. So that's your dream team: your mentor, your sponsor, your coach, and your community.
I love that. Your dream team. Now, we're going to open this up to the group. What do you do on a daily basis to move your business forward? What are those persistent steps that you do each and every day, or maybe weekly or monthly, to move your business forward?
I personally love listening to podcasts. The ones from our group, and anything that will keep me inspired and kind of focused. I find is kind of intentionally filling my mind with that can-do attitude. It's continually refilling the motivation cup, because that can kind of come and go, and so that I find that helps me kind of stay in momentum. Intentionally filling my mind with podcasts and other things that inspire me to keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll add that what has inspired me and kept me going is the community, really. We've mentioned community a lot here, and those who are not part of a community are probably wondering why and how important is this? And just as Jeannie said, if you really want to go farther, faster, you do so with a community. And, we do have our community in EntreMD, and where we meet every week. And we meet on the days that are, one is the most challenging day because it's on a Wednesday, but yet still it's the day that we look forward to the most. At least I do, because I know that once I tap into that community and I hear and I see others, I get inspired. I get uplifted. If something that I attempted did not work, then and I can reach out to my community. My community can really provide insights, alternatives on how to make it a better outcome the next time, and then you learn so many ways on how to do things that you never thought. With a community, your mind is open to things you never thought about, especially with this one where you're meeting with people from all over the world. When you think that what you're doing in your small town, even in your house, like, okay, I came up with a great idea, and then someone can embellish on that idea, like, how powerful that is. And so that motivates me to keep going, to never give up. I know that I have those who have my back, and I know that my creativity and my boldness, my audacious personality that is coming back out, that I can never get put down because of it. It's I'm in a community where they support all who I am. And so that keeps me going, and that's fuel to my fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. I love it. Dr. Obadan, would you like to share what your biggest lesson? I mean,
my daily task, my daily. What your question was, the things we do daily, right, to move our business forward.
Yeah.
So I think on a daily basis, I try my best to maintain the schedule, the routine. You have to have this great schedule. This is a work in progress for me. I'm going to be very honest. To wake up at the same time and do things consistently, be very wary of your input, what's coming in. And so I read a lot of books, have time blocks specifically to do specific tasks, and make sure that I work on some part of the business. The schedule, because there's so many moving parts with the business. There's the marketing piece, there's the sale piece, then you have to call, then you actually have to see the patients, and you have to follow up and so there's so many moving parts of the business. So just have time blocks on the schedule and cut the big task into small chunks, add them into the schedule, and try to maintain momentum.
I love that. Put the big size stuff into small chunks so you can keep maintaining your momentum. All right.
Correct. And then, yes.
What are some things that you do on a daily basis to move forward?
I'm last, right? I think everything that everyone has said is where it is. Find a way to keep it in front of you. Keep your vision and your why in front of you, because then you can you can constantly be moving in that direction. Otherwise, life gets in the way, right? And all sorts of other things start to spiral up. But if you have a process, so I have my screensaver, which has the name of my business, and I put like reminders that I'm going to make contacts, network with people, put myself out there, whatever it is that is the particular focus I'm working on at that time. It's a reminder that I must always, every day, be driving forward in this particular space, right? Because otherwise, you start running, and when you look up again, it's midnight, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll do it tomorrow. So you can schedule, you can put it in your book, make sure that there is a time that you're focused on it. I think what's really helpful is having that practice when you first wake up, to be intentional about what am I going to do today about this, right? So if you have that practice, and as Dr. Badan says, it's a work in progress for a lot of people, but as you build that muscle, it really helps you to automate keeping your business moving forward every day.
So you ladies have really just brought the knowledge today. And so for our last question, think about when you first started, that person who you were. What advice would you give that person who's starting this journey, who's starting this entrepreneurial journey into speakership or any type of different business? What advice would you give them? What is one piece of advice you would give to that person who's starting, or even to yourself when you were starting?
I would say start. Start, because that's the hardest part, is starting. There's so many hurdles that you'll encounter in between or as you go along on this journey, but none of them is harder than starting. Starting is the hardest. So you'll be so proud of what you have accomplished and what you're achieving. And as Dr. Nyoku said, when you look at your why during times that it's hard, it builds you back up along with other things. But the hardest part of this journey is taking that first step. So just go ahead and start.
Awesome. I love it. So just start.
I would add to that. I would say to myself, and not maybe to everybody else, perfectionism is fear. Because you're sitting there waiting for it to be perfect is another way of allowing fear to rule you. So you have to let that go. Do it messy. Just do it.
And I would add to that, do it afraid. So I think before I started this journey, like really started the journey, I looked at people who seemed to, have successful businesses and assumed that they were putting themselves out there fearlessly. They looked so confident. And so when I felt fear, I felt like something must be wrong, or like it shouldn't be this way. And maybe I need to wait until I'm not afraid to do it. And once I got started and again got into community with other entrepreneurs, I realized that everybody is afraid, no matter how confident they look when they're on camera, and they're just taking that action anyway. So normalizing that fear, reframing it as, this is a part of the journey. It can come along for the ride. I don't have to wait until it's gone for me to take that action, is the advice that I would give.
Awesome. Thank you. And Dr. Obadan, you're going to end us out?
Yes, I think everything our doctors have said, Dr. Tamara, Dr. Wando, Dr. Jeannie, these are all golden nuggets. I mean, like, the bottom line is the fear. Like, we all have it. So just start, just do it. And I started with the end in mind. Why am I doing this? And why did I pick this niche that I have decided to focus on, the, medical conditions that disproportionately affect a certain group of people that we can help by focusing on preventing these things from coming on in the first place. So for me, my TEDx talk was about prevention. I'm very big on prevention and helping prevent the onset of these diseases that go on to cause a lot of pain down the line, especially for minority, populations and different other populations. So start with the end in mind and do it anyway. Just do it. Embrace the fear, as all our doctors say, and keep moving forward regardless. Be relentless. Be resilient. Surround yourself with community and keep moving forward.
Yes, I love that. Be resilient, be relentless, but just keep moving forward. All righty. Well, let's just go around and just kind of just share where people can work with you if they're interested, or how can they get in touch with you?
Who's first? Alrighty, I'll go first. So as you mentioned, I am Dr. Tamara Beckford, and you can find me on LinkedIn as Tamara Beckford MD. That's where a lot of my posts and a lot of my things are housed. And as I mentioned, that I help organizations to create amazing culture, reduce burnout, and increase their productivity through self-care workshops. So you can find me at yourcaringdocs.com. That's URCARINGDOCS.com. And there we can find ways for us to work together to help your organization. And if you would like me as a speaker, we can find me there also.
Awesome. I'm Dr. Wando Anyoku, as said, and I am a physician executive coach and speaker, and I support physicians and leaders in healthcare organizations to help them navigate their path so that they can find success and leadership and reconnect to the joy and purpose of medicine. You can find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Wando Anyoku, and on my website, wandoanyoku.com, if you would like to work with me, or if you would like me to come speak to your group. I speak about leadership, confidence. I speak about equity and amplifying the voice of minorities. I am happy to work with you, so I'd look forward to hearing from you.
And as said, I'm Dr. Jeannie Lawrence. I'm a psychiatrist and psychotherapist by training and have a private practice, currently serving women in North Carolina and soon in Virginia as well. I'm also a speaker and have a life coaching business that serves women physicians and helps them create lives that are as happy as they are successful. So if you're interested in learning more or working with me, my website is my name, JeannieLawrenceMD.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Dr.JeannieLawrence, and also on LinkedIn under my name as well.
And I'm Dr. Ndidi Amaka Obadan. I'm the founder of Younger Self MD Medical Clinic Health and Wellness. I help adults at risk prevent and treat chronic medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and chronic kidney disease. And I help in as little as 30 minutes so that they can go on to live healthier, happier, and longer lives. You can find me on my website at youngerselfmd.com and my YouTube channel, Younger Self MD. And I'm also on Instagram at youngerself.md. On LinkedIn, I'm there as Ndidi Amaka Obadan.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming. And I'm your host, Dr. Alicia Shelley, who's the host of the Back on Track Achieving a Healthy Weight Loss, and the Thrive for Life YouTube channel. And I thank you so much for watching and listening. And please feel free to share this episode with friends. And if you have not bought the Made for More book, go to Amazon and just Google Made for More book, and you see it here, the Made for More physicians who are physician entrepreneurs who live life and practice medicine on their own terms. So go ahead and get that book. And thank you so very much, ladies, for joining us. And you can find me at my website at drshelleymd.com. Have a good night.